Who are the essential ads in fantasy baseball, and who is it time to cut bait on? We'll go through all of that in this week's episode of the Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball Ad Drop. The player I want you to add this week is St. Louis Cardinals first baseman outfielder Alec Burleson, who's rostered in just 24% of Yahoo leagues. The Cardinals have been a little bit of a mess this season, and two of their big-time prospects, Jordan Walker and Victor Scott, didn't pan out early in the year, but that's opened up opportunities for guys like Burleson. He's gone 18 of 44 over the last 2 weeks, which is a 4.09 average with 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, and 2 steals. While Burleson wasn't a top prospect, he put up good numbers in AAA, hitting .331 in 119 games in 2022 with 20 home runs, 87 RBIs, and 4 steals. He hasn't been able to get that to translate to the major league level, but this year he's being far more aggressive and looking to drive the ball to all fields. His swing rate is up, and while his chase rate has remained the same, his overall contact rate is down, and that usually fits with a player who's selling out for power. But Burleson is actually pulling the ball less, while both his oppo rate and his line drive rate are up this season. Plus, he's only striking out 18% of the time, so using the whole fields has led to his ideal contact rate really going up, and that's 87th percentile in baseball right now. And while it may prevent him from putting up huge power numbers, I think it's going to give him a solid batting average and give him the opportunity to drive in runs now that he's hitting in the middle of this Cardinals order. If you add about 15 home runs to that, you have a pretty solid fantasy player who deserves to be rostered in more formats. My hold for this week is White Sox first baseman Andrew Vaughn, who's now rostered in just 23% of Yahoo leagues. Now, this is more for deeper formats or leagues with deep benches, because I think it's okay to move on from Vaughn in shallower leagues because he's not really producing right now. However, the 23-year-old is starting to come around a little bit over the last 2 weeks. In the last 13 games, he's hit .220 with 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, and 4 runs scored. He has just an 18% strikeout rate over that span, while posting a 16.2% barrel rate. He has 6 barrels and 19 hard-hit baseballs over his last 13 games, which has led to a .500 slugging percentage, and is why I believe that .220 batting average is not really reflective of the quality of contact that he's making recently. He's also been lifting the ball more, which should help him get to his power. Now, he is using an all-fields approach instead of really pulling the ball, which is causing his fly balls to die in center field, but I am intrigued by him making better contact and better swing decisions. PitcherList has a decision value rolling graph that shows that Vaughn is now making league average swing decisions thanks to chasing less out of the zone and being more aggressive on pitches in the zone. So we have a former top prospect who's making better swing decisions, getting to his power more often, and lifting the ball more. Those are all changes I can get behind, so I'm willing to keep Vaughn on my roster to see if this leads to a little bit of a breakout or a little bit of a power boost in the coming weeks. Now, my drop for this week is Baltimore Orioles outfielder Cedric Mullins, who's rostered in 69% of Yahoo leagues. Now, this is more for shallower formats. I think in 15-team leagues, you can still hold on to Mullins because he is the Orioles' best defensive option in center field, and that gives him a decent amount of playing time currently. However, I think in shallower 12-team leagues and in all 10-team leagues, you can definitely move on from Mullins. The veteran has been really bad in May, hitting just .122 with 1 extra base hit and a 33.3% strikeout rate. He's now hitting just .187 on the season since he only hit .219 over the first 29 games. But his fantasy value was boosted in those first 29 games because it came with 6 home runs and 6 steals. Now, the speed will always be there for Mullins. However, his 17% homer to fly ball ratio to start the year is well above his career 12% mark. And I think that Mullins' launch angle is now a little bit out of whack. He has a 26.7% fly ball rate in May. He's popping the ball up. He's selling out for power. And I just don't think a player with his kind of speed needs to be taking that kind of approach. But it was an approach we saw him lean into a little bit last year as well. His job security is in his speed and his defense, but Austin Hayes is actually a decent enough center fielder, and the Orioles have played Colton Cowser in center field 6 times this season, and he's graded out as an exactly league average defensive center fielder. That gives the Orioles a few options to try in center field if they decide they need more than what Mullins is providing them offensively. So that makes me worried enough that I'm happy to move on from Mullins in shallower formats. A bonus stash for those of you who hung around this late in the video is Cleveland Guardians outfielder Johnathan Rodriguez, who's rostered in just 1% of Yahoo leagues. Now, I started drafting this week's episode on Sunday before the news came out Monday afternoon that Rodriguez was going to be called up, but I'm keeping him here because I don't think many people know about Rodriguez as a prospect. In fact, I didn't really know much about Rodriguez coming into this year before I started reading Chris Clegg's Dynasty Dugout work earlier this spring. The 24-year-old Rodriguez has had a pretty good year at AAA, hitting .276 with 7 home runs and 4 stolen bases so far this year. He has a 90th percentile exit velocity of 107.7 miles per hour, and that's near the top of AAA. His average exit velocity is 92.3 miles an hour, which is again near the top of the leaderboards. That's 90th percentile among hitters. He does have a bit of a swing and miss issue, but he's made improvements in his strikeout rate this year, and he's raised his contact rate overall to 72% and his zone contact rate to about 83%, which is about league average. It's something we saw similar with Joey Loperfido at the beginning of the year, being a plus power hitter who raised contact rates to league average. However, that has led to some strikeout issues for Loperfido in the majors, and I think you're going to see some strikeout issues for Rodriguez. But if he can get to that power, that's going to keep him in the lineup because this Guardians offense needs right-handed power. Rodriguez started in his first game up on Tuesday, and I think he has a chance to push David Fry, Will Brennan, those guys for more regular at-bats, especially since Fry is somebody who can bounce around to different positions. So Rodriguez is not a can't-miss prospect. There are some flaws in his approach, but if you need power, I think he is somebody that could be a good add in deeper formats, or somebody you could certainly add to your watch list to see if he can get a regular spot in the Guardians lineup. So to recap my picks for this week, my add is Cardinals first baseman outfielder Alec Burleson. My hold is White Sox first baseman Andrew Vaughn. My drop is Orioles outfielder Cedric Mullins. And my stash was Guardians outfielder Johnathan Rodriguez. We'll be back with more on next week's episode of the Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball Ad Drop.